So, Tony, we were just talking on the sidelines. We both know Sullivan Stapleton, the actor. And what was the first scene you shot with him?
The first thing he had to do was the kissing scene. And he told me just before, he's never kissed a guy before. So
Right.
It was quite challenging. Actually, no, it was the second scene.
And was that due to a scheduling conflict?
It was a schedule issue, but
right.
we talked to him about it, and he was up for it.
Because that can be really challenging as a director, is scheduling actors with availability. And obviously you're fortunate enough to get Sullivan.
Yes.
Sullivan, who's had a phenomenal rise of success recently.
Yeah.
And so was there restrictions on his schedule?
He was shooting another film, and he sort of, we had to go over and rehearse with him in Perth.
Yeah.
And we had basically 2 days of rehearsal with him, and then he, and then he had to go off and do a TV series.
Right.
Soon after finishing.
Right.
So he is at a particular point in his career.
I believe they call them movie stars.
He's a movie star, yeah.
And that can be really challenging as a director too, is with limited sort of rehearsal time. I mean, were you obviously in dialogue with him before the production began?
We talked a bit. He had known about the script for a long time. It took us quite a while to get the finance together, and he was so perfect for that role.
Mm-hmm.
We were, in a way, even from the very first time he read the script out loud, I kind of knew that he had a handle on that character, and so in a way, my job really was not to get in his way.
Yeah.
He really understood that character.
Yeah.
I was so full of admiration for him during the process, because he just delivered and came up with ideas, and every time I thought that he made the role better than it was on the page, and it was the standout role on the page.
Yeah, right. Well, he's got a phenomenal presence on the screen. Now, talk to me, just to go back. Where did the project come from, and what was sort of the catalyst for it? Was it a story that? Because we've heard that was it based on a true story?
It started out based on a true story.
Really?
The bombing of the Whiskey A Go-Go in Brisbane in 1973, and it was when I kind of encountered the script in 2002 or 2003. It was a script that had a lot of interest, but was kind of like 3 different movies in one, and there was another director attached to it initially, and it kind of just kept developing, and then I got a call in, I think, 2007 that the other director was no longer involved in it, and so they asked me whether I wanted to, and I'd always loved it, but it was still a number of different things, and I guess my job on it was to try to find the thing that it was that I was interested in making.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, I was interested in the love triangle.
Yeah.
And so we just kept honing it, pulling it back until that was the film.
Yeah, right. There's one thing watching the film, obviously that it's in that thriller genre, and all good thrillers come down to the release of information, as you would know in terms of story, in screenwriting and in developing the story, and it's the release of that information, the revelations, and the placement of those can be quite particular. It's like how much you hold back on the audience. I know, the first time I watched this film, it was quite the bombshell because I knew nothing about the true story.
Yeah.
But when I realised the revelation that they had a relationship, because before that, I guess as an audience member, the assumption was that, well, maybe there was some sort of, they became friends in prison, or he owes him for protection. Yeah. And just talk me through that, because, was that something that was cemented at the script stage, or was that something that you worked again on in the edit?
We worked through it in the development, but over a number of years. It initially started that the reveal of the relationship was very early in the film, and as we were developing it, it just felt that we should be pushing it back and to keep the audience guessing and about the nature of the relationship. I mean, I think that there are quite a few clues as to the relationship all the way through, and I think you'd know that there's something wrong in Denmark. Like that it's not a standard relationship, and I think the thing that really interested me about the film was that I think that there's a lot of homoerotic subtext in a lot of cinema, and I was kind of interested in what happens when it actually becomes explicit.
Yeah.
And in a way, the thriller element of it is I suppose the disguise of the film, because it's I actually think it's a love triangle. That's kind of, like, it starts out as quite a conventional thriller, and then it reveals itself as a love triangle.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's the warring over the love of this young man,
and trying to make those two, like, it's a cross genre film, so trying to make those two things fit together and be coherent is one thing.
And also, I think one thing that really sort of stood out for me on a thematic level was the, I guess, the relationships that we have internally and the relationships we have externally, and also the relationships that he had on the inside versus the relationships he's having on the outside. And was that part of the survival, or was that part of,
I guess it was always a question for us in discussing the film with the actors. It was like, who, was he really in love with him? And it was always I personally felt that that he was in love with him, and that he couldn't, that it was. But he was also in love with her, basically. I do think it was a genuine love triangle. And I think that Jess DeGale, who plays Paula, is fantastic, and that she had to be, one of the things that we had to work on a lot in the script was to make sure that she was like a strong, real, love element of the story. I think that it could be read either way. Like, I do think that you could read it as, well, he was just using, like Sparrow was using Pommy to protect him when he was in prison, and he didn't really love him all. But I also hope that you can also read it the other way.
No, certainly, and I think at the midpoint when that revelation comes through, they're the questions you're asking yourself, and then obviously once you get to the end of the story, you feel that there really was a deep love.
I hope so. Yeah. I hope that you feel that.
And the different types of love too, the intimate versus the physical relationships, and we see the cross cutting that's happening, throughout the film is really, really nice.
And hopefully, I was also really interested in. I mean, this sounds a little bit wanky, but technically, I was interested in the idea. Like, the thriller genre is essentially a very two-dimensional genre, and it's about. And I was kind of really interested in the idea of trying to make a villain three-dimensional. Yeah. I was also really interested in creating a villain who was basically a mad gay psychopath in love.
And I think you pulled that off.
Well, Sullivan just had that.
No, he really did. So going on Sullivan, I mean, how were you able to pull such a phenomenal cast together? You've got a really great cast.
We worked really hard for quite a few years to pull the cast together, and as you know, it's so much of when being able to make a film is getting the cast and then getting the window when all of them are available, basically. And it was the kind of film that needed an ensemble cast.
Yeah. I just got some notes I made down here. So with the fiction element versus the true story, I mean, how much did you tie closely to what happened? I mean, was there a lot of research involved in that?
The writer, Blake Ashford, who did a beautiful job on the film, he was fascinated by the bombing with Whiskey Go-Go. Like, it was always something that he was, it was a story that meant a lot to him. But he found one line in the research that became the film, which was that it was rumoured two guys who were arrested were lovers in prison. And and that was it. There was just one line there, and that
was a rumour?
Yeah. And it captured his imagination.
Yeah, wow.
He thought, oh, well, that's really interesting. And then it just kind of, he wrote it into the film. And as soon as I read it, I thought, wow, that's an interesting film for me. And so whether it's true or not, I don't know. We couldn't ever say based on a true story. Like, we'd spun it so far away from all the things we knew, so that's why we didn't say it was kind of based on a true story, but it was inspired by a true story.
Right. Well, as we know, I mean, Greg McLean said it was a true story with Wolf Creek, and that was so far away from the reality that I believe he did it for ticket sales.
I thought it was a documentary. I thought it was a documentary.
And just talk to me, I'm just going to ask you a few production level questions. As a director, I always love asking those. I mean, how many weeks did you shoot the film in? What were the...
Actually,
you don't know?
We had 28 days. 28 days later.
Yeah, wow. Wow, it's a beautiful looking film. And who shot the film?
Simon Chapman.
Simon Chapman.
Yeah,
beautiful. Did a really great job.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I've been working in television for quite a few years, so 28 days felt luxurious to me. We actually finished most days early.
Oh, really?
I feel
well, that's the TV background
really
coming through, isn't it? And was it a big challenge doing the period setting? We're a kind of relatively low budget film. Yeah.
We had a great designer, Jo Ford, who is, I mean, she's a genius.
Yeah.
And we tried not to make it feel like period. We were always trying to make it just be our interpretation of the 70s, and we tried that with the music as well. Like, we tried to like re-record as many songs as possible, and make it our interpretation of that time. Right. So, but it definitely has a very period look. It's contained, and the great thing about the film, I think, is like really all the resources are up on the screen.
Yeah.
Those frames are as wide as we could make them. There's nothing else on either side.
And just talk to me. I've got one last question. Obviously you've got a huge background in television as well, and the difference in working in the two mediums.
For a director, films are much more a director's medium. I mean, you had fantastic support from my producers, it really, and I think that's kind of why you feel so vulnerable when you make a film. Like, I forgot how neurotic you get when you make a film, and honestly, I completely forgot, because like TV, you're at home when it screens, and you look at the ratings next day. But like cinema is much more immediate, and so I think that's and you have more time, and you have more resources to make something. So, and it requires like it is a real artisan medium, and I really love that. I really value the opportunities I get to make, when I get to make a film. But most of the time, I work in TV.
Yeah, right. Because you've got a lot of projects on, right?
Yeah.
A lot. And how do you manage that?
That guy over there.
Where is he? Can I borrow him?
Yeah. No, you can't. No, really. At the moment, I'm working mainly as an executive producer, so I sort of put teams together, and I basically employ people. So it makes me really popular at parties. So I sort of have an overview, because the other things that I do in television is kind of like show running, where you're like the creative producer and you're kind of running the whole thing. And then I also do some directing every now and then.
Yeah.
But at the moment, because of when I have to do like more than two things at once, I have to sort of step away from it a bit.
Right. And go into the world of features, which is a phenomenal effort. So I just want to thank you once again, Tony.
Thank you, Patrick.
Very well done. We're going to pass it over to some questions from the crowd.
Congratulations, Tony. Excellent effort. Beautiful physical setting. Was that New South Wales near the Blue Mountains or somewhere beautiful in Victoria?
Warrandyte.
Ah, thank you.
And no, it was all set in Melbourne.
And congratulations on the setting with the ambulances, fire brigades. I mean, I'm an old chook, and I always want to make sure you get the costuming right, and you did really well, because fantastic. I'm a complete nitpicker.
That was our production designer, Jo Ford. Yeah.
Question?
Hey Tony, could you speak about your process with working with actors on set, if you had to do something maybe different to what they were doing, or you had a really small rehearsal time, so...
For me, the key choice is casting, and I sort of find that, if I cast it right, then I don't have to do that much. Most of the time I just talk about what the meaning of the scene is, and I try to act as the first audience for the actors, so that, like if the scene has to convey a certain thing, then I'll let them know whether it's conveyed that for me or not, or that shot has conveyed that. and sometimes, you know, really you just have to adapt what you do to according to the actor. So say with Alex, who, you know, as a person is quite different from the person on the screen. So I spent a lot of time talking him through that and trying to give him the confidence to, like, he's a very talkative guy, and the character he plays barely says anything. And I just had to give him the confidence that actually, you know, he just had to experience what the character was going through, and that we would pick that up, and that he didn't have to articulate as much. With Sullivan, really, I just had to not get in the way. You know, like, he nailed everything. And Jess is, you know, like, she's a beautiful, you know, she's an incredible actress and very sensitive, very finely tuned, able to, you know, like, able to change the performance based on one word, you know, like, you know. So most of the time it's just suggesting things, talking, like, I'm not, you know, that's about my skill set, really.
Right. Is there any more questions?
Yeah, hi. You said that during development you refined the genres and refined the ideas down. I'm curious what you kind of discarded and boiled off the process.
The initial script also had a, well, from the very first script I read, Paula dies in the nightclub fire in the first act, and then we go to prison with the two guys, and it's a miscarriage of justice story. So it's quite it was sort of like, it was really amazing, like, but it was also across 3 time frames. So it was a very ambitious, multi-strand sort of film, and I guess it really struggled to pull all those things together because they were quite different films. Like, they all pulled against each other, I felt. And so as the development process went on, you know, which you know, for a long time it was in 2 time frames, and then one day Blake said, I'm just gonna try something, and he just dropped one of the time frames, and suddenly the script took this massive leap forward.
Wow.
So it was really about simplifying, and, you know, it was like a crucible effect. It was the simpler and clearer it became in terms of what the central concept was, the closer we got to it, the more it felt like the film, you know. But I guess that's kind of what we got rid of. I mean, I think there's an amazing story also in those 2 guys in prison afterwards, and the miscarriage of justice story, and that's the truer story. You know, so there were a number of different stories that we could have told, but that was the story that I wanted to tell.
Honing in on that love triangle.
Yeah. I guess it was the thing that I sort of felt was, you know, like, I guess I was really drawn to the Pommy character, and, you know, like the passion of his feelings for this guy, and that he would do anything, basically including destroy the guy to have him. And I thought that it felt, when we were talking about it, opera came up a lot in the way that we talked about it. It was always like, we talked about it as an opera.
And there was some opera at the beginning, right?
Yes, and it's also one of the clues, because it's basically, you know, it's a furtive love secret.
Right.
Yeah.
Where Sullivan's in the little prison shorts.
Yes.
Where do I buy those? And the volleys.
eBay.
So Australian. Was there any other questions? Right here.
What was your inspiration for the shooting style and for the look and feel of the film? I mean, what did you... Yeah.
We just wanted to, I guess, keep it pretty simple. I guess you know, a lot of the stuff I'd done in the past was very handheld, and it felt like kind of more composed and simpler frames, you know, and with slow-mos. It just kind of felt right for the, I guess, the operatic nature of it, and you know, it's a little bit proscenium arch, which was, you know, like, we wanted to make it like that. Again, to try to house it somehow.
Was the title of the film derived from the Australian saying "mad as a cut snake"? And how did you come up with it? Yeah.
That was the title from the beginning.
I really like it.
love that film. I enjoyed the triangularity so much. It was so potent. And I love the fact that the woman wasn't the victim. I thought, oh, they're setting her up. Again, the female actress, the thing. And I was so rapt that she was alive at the end. The biggest surprise.
Well, in many drafts she wasn't.
And I'm thinking I'd love to tell my friends, come and see the film without giving away the lovely, because I knew nothing at all about this film apart from its title and your name. And I would love to. Do you have a line for me? Is it a cross between Animal Kingdom and something?
I mean, I think the hardest thing for us with this film is actually working out how to get people calm without sort of, the spoiler.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the best experiences of it really are when you don't know anything about it.
That's right.
Because but of course, why would you go to a film that you don't know anything about?
So that's a experience here.
Yeah. So we're trying to work that out at the moment, like how to. I mean, there is a sexy thriller, and it's a thriller, love triangle thriller.
Well, I got this one off Internet Movie Database. A pair of ex-cons hatch a scheme to burn down a nightclub. Boom, there you go. That gives nothing away.
That's so not the film. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would go see that film.
So I think it screened at Toronto, and there was a quote about it being a cross between History of Violence and Brokeback Mountain, which I thought was good.
I would say with a touch of Fargo in there. No, that was one of the references. I'm not sure if that was a reference for you, but it had that, because there's that claustrophobic atmosphere that's coming through. It's about these small decisions that are made that gradually snowball into this inevitable avalanche you can't stop and you get consumed by.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's a decision where he says, well, take me back to your house and get me a beer. And it's like, dude, don't. Only because I know Sullivan, I would never let him in.
Yeah. I have to sort of say that Sullivan was, he's been a friend for a long time, but we had never worked before, and it was such a revelation working with him. He's an amazing actor, and he was such a leader on the set as well.
Yeah.
In his little shorts.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah. Well done, Tony. The film's fantastic. Just wondering if you had, say, twice or three times the budget that you did have. I just wondered what you would do differently if you had a much more expansive budget.
God, I don't know. I'm so used to working in Australia.
Winnebago. Star Wagon.
I probably wouldn't. I think the film. Honestly, I think that we would have had a lot more resources for the nightclub scenes, and we wouldn't have been sort of shuffling the same extras forwards and backwards in the same shot, run quickly. I mean, I think we're all used to doing that.
Did you notice it?
I mean, some of the coverage is a bit thin in some of the scenes. So I think that the bigger scenes, the bigger set pieces, we would have had more resources for. But essentially, I didn't ever feel shortchanged.
No.
Spend it on marketing.
Yes, marketing would be good.
That just brings up a question for me was, working with actors and the vision you have in your mind with location and staging. How does that work with you? I mean, obviously it's always great to, once you're on set with all your actors and what you have in your mind, you want to have a game plan for the day.
Yeah.
But then when you get actors together and you've got some dynamic staging going on, especially when you've got multiple people in a room, such as a nightclub, how that sort of plays out. I mean, is that the first thing you do when you get on set is to just do a walkthrough?
I mean, one of the things that I actually learned it from Sophie Okonedo, who was an English actress who worked on Slap, and she just said that what she likes to do is to just when she goes into a space, she just likes to be with the director and maybe the cinematographer and no one else in the room, and just block it out and just work out what feels natural, and then of course you adjust that for the camera.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. We just always had them. Could have been 10 minutes, could have been 15 minutes of just us working out what felt right, and then working out how we're going to film it. So I was trying, you try to be as flexible as possible, because I guess it never feels right to me to sort of say, go over there and say this, or come here and do this. But I would sort of suggest, well, if you come over here, we're going to see you.
But don't walk here because you'll be front leg.
Yes. And the great thing about Sullivan is he always knows where the lights are. He always knows where the camera is.
Yeah. Any more questions? Okay, just want to thank Tony once again for making the effort to come down here. Thank you all very much for supporting Australian cinema. It's a wonderful film, Tony. We wish you the very best of luck with the release, and congratulations.